Welcome back, everyone. My name is Omar, and I'm the creator of blackastrology.com. And this is part 2 of our Intro to Astrology videos. And today's video is going to be on the sun. To really understand astrology, you have to understand that astrology is essentially a culmination of its parts. And what I mean by that is the more you can understand the individual portions of astrology, like each planet, each house, each aspect, and so on, you'll understand astrology as a whole much better. The sun is essentially the foundation of astrology in the sense where it seems to be the entry point where a lot of people get started. Whether you know a lot or a little of astrology, everyone seems to know what their sun sign is. And to understand the sun in astrology, you really need to understand the sun in an astronomical way. In a physical, literal sense, the sun is a gigantic ball of fire that provides light, warmth, and energy to every single thing on this planet. And in that sense, you really get an understanding for how it has a significance in your astrological chart. Wherever the sun is in your chart, you'll see you have the most vitality in that area. You'll see that, that's where your drive, your will to succeed, and a lot of your energy is put towards that place in your life. A lot of people who start learning about astrology start learning about their sun sign. I guess you could say the sun is the gateway drug into astrology. Well, anyway, what I mean to say is that once you learn about the sun, it really helps to springboard your journey into learning about yourself and learning about your astrological chart. And based on what day of the year you were born, your sun will fall into one of the 12 astrological signs: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. And depending on what sign it falls into, you will take on the attributes of that specific sign, generally. Each planet rules a specific sign or a house in your chart. And in this case, the sun, which I know is not a planet, but for astrological purposes, it's treated as one of the 10 celestial bodies. Symbolically, the sun is represented by a circle with a dot in the middle. What that means is the sun is the focal point of who we are. It's our character. That dot represents us, and the circle itself is our surroundings. The sun represents who we are at our core when no one is watching. So when we think about where the sun is in our chart, it's really who we are and what drives us, what fuels us to keep going. The sun represents the awareness of self. It's our character, it's our core. And where you see the sun in your chart is likely where you'll leave an impact on the world. In astrological terms, the sun is a masculine entity. It penetrates. It reaches out. It gives light and warmth. It gives off energy into the void. The sun, it rules the sign Leo, and it rules the 5th house. The sun itself has its own qualities and properties about it. In your astrological chart, the sun represents your ego, your will, your vitality, your driving force to accomplish specific things. It rules your self-confidence. In your chart, wherever the sun may be, it manifests itself as something that's grand, right? You think about what the sun is physically, it's the largest thing in our sky. It's the largest thing in our solar system. And when you think about how it plays an effect in your chart, you have to think of things on a grand scale. The sun in many cultures is linked to royalty. It's linked to kings and queens of the past. And that's because the sun, it rules all things regal. So whenever you look in your chart and you see the sun, that's the area of your life where you're going to have the most ego attached to a specific thing. It's going to be the place in your life where you have the biggest will, the biggest drive to getting things done. On the opposite side, right? There's always this, everything in astrology is balance. So on the opposite side of all these good things you mentioned about the sun, the bad things that come along with it are, for example, pride. Anything that's associated with an overabundance of ego or an overabundance of drive and will. So pride is one of those things that can be a downside to having too much of a solar energy in your chart. So if someone is overly ambitious, they're willing to steamroll anyone in their path to get something done. And that's sort of the negative part of the sun. If it's too much, it can literally set fire to anything. Another aspect of the sun that could be considered negative, if the sun is not well aspected, that person can have significant insecurities, right? Because their ego is frail. If the sun in that person's chart is weak, then you may see someone with a frail ego, someone with significant insecurities about who they are. So being that the sun rules the sign Leo, what you'll tend to see is that people that are Leos happen to be very jovial people for the most part. They're very grand. Maybe they like to buy expensive things. Maybe they like to look great all the time. This is a general sort of aspect or characteristic of someone with strong sun influence, like a Leo. Someone with that strong sun influence in their life is going to be someone who's warm, who's outgoing, who's like a social butterfly, if you will. And these people are going to be someone who brightens up the room, right? And when we think about the sun in someone's chart, we have to think about, that overall yearning to be the biggest, brightest thing in the room. And that's really where, the ego may come in, or even just a desire for flair and a desire for, nice things so they can stand out. If you were to characterize the sun, you'd find words like rambunctious, bossy, egotistical, gaudy, vivacious, loyal, warm, radiant, leader. Some of those characteristics aren't always so great, some aren't always so good, but it's a mesh of those characteristics that make up the sun as it is in our astrological charts. So to summarize, the sun is that foundation, the sun is that core part of astrology where a lot of people know and a lot of people learn to get their feet wet with astrological charts. Some occupational ideas for someone with a strong sun placement or a sun that's well aspected could be acting, because the sun is typically the person that commands attention in the room, brightens up the room, or someone that takes a leadership position because the sun is typically the boss of the room, or even someone who works with children. As the sun does rule the fifth house is the domain for children. Well, these are some things to consider when you think about where the sun is placed in your chart or what's your sun sign. One of the things we can learn from the sun is to be more lively, to be more jovial, to reach out, bring warmth to the areas that you go to. And we should also try to avoid some of the pitfalls. Try to avoid excessive ego, try to avoid excessive pride or ambition, but yet use the sun's energy and use it to drive us, use it to fuel the positive ambition that we have to get things done. What's your sun sign? Where do you see it in your chart? How do you think it plays out? Do you see some of these characteristics in yourself? And if so, how much? And if you're Leo, this video is right up your alley because I'm sure you love hearing about yourself. So hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more videos. Thank you.